What makes a submarine movie feel real to those who've actually served beneath the waves? Is it the sweat dripping from bulkheads during a silent run? The fear that every sonar ping could be the last sound you hear? Tonight, we dive deep into steel coffins of cinema. These are 15 submarine movies submariners swear by, and 4 they absolutely don't. Number 15. The Hunt for Red October, 1990. It wasn't just a box office hit, it was a full-blown Cold War fever dream. The Hunt for Red October showed the silent terror of underwater warfare like no film before it. Sean Connery's calm defiance as a Soviet captain defecting to America turned tension into poetry. The plot followed a renegade Soviet sub carrying a stealth propulsion system so quiet it could sneak past NATO undetected. But behind the patriotic cheering lay real military nerves. The Pentagon was uneasy. Many of the submarine maneuvers were so precise, ex-Navy officers wondered who had leaked classified tactics. The studio claimed it was all imagination, but veterans whispered that author Tom Clancy had guessed too much. Naval bases reportedly restricted viewings during its release, fearing leaks of sonar and propulsion design hints. Filming itself was a logistical nightmare. The sets were hydraulic monsters that tilted and rolled to mimic dives. Connery's Scottish accent sparked parody, yet his command presence silenced doubt. The film's atmosphere of contained paranoia, the hum of engines, the sweat of men locked inside metal, felt eerily true to life. Today, Submariners still call it the closest Hollywood ever came to getting their claustrophobic world right. A world where loyalty is tested in darkness, and one wrong move can doom an entire crew. Number 14. Das Boot, 1981. Few films have ever captured the suffocating horror of submarine warfare like Das Boot. Made in West Germany at the height of Cold War tension, it stripped away glory and replaced it with grime. The film followed a U-boat crew in World War II descending into madness as they faced crushing depth charges and dwindling oxygen. When it premiered, censors panicked. It portrayed German sailors not as villains but as terrified men dying for nothing. Veterans wept. American distributors hesitated. Some even feared it might inspire sympathy for the enemy. But the raw realism came from its director, Wolfgang Petersen, who forced his cast to spend months inside a life-size U-boat set sealed off from daylight. The actors suffered exhaustion and nausea as the set tilted violently. Their sweat was real, their panic unscripted. Every rivet groaned, every gauge dripped with tension. Petersen wanted audiences to feel the war, not just see it. The result was claustrophobic genius. Critics hailed it as one of the greatest anti-war films ever made. Real submariners agreed. They said it captured the stink, the fear, the mechanical heartbeat of life beneath the Atlantic. Das Boot wasn't entertainment. It was a warning from the deep, a masterpiece that still surfaces whenever truth matters more than victory. Number 13. Crimson Tide, 1995. Crimson Tide was Hollywood at its loudest, yet somewhere between the missiles and mutiny, it found terrifying truth. The story pitted Gene Hackman's iron-fisted captain against Denzel Washington's principled executive officer aboard a nuclear submarine. A misunderstood command order leads to chaos and a potential nuclear launch. The tension felt real because it was. During production, the U.S. Navy refused full cooperation. Officials hated the idea of depicting a split in nuclear command. The filmmakers used declassified manuals and ex-officers to stage every move. Hackman and Washington's verbal duels were rehearsed like combat drills, their dialogue echoing the chain of command's fragility. On set, Tony Scott insisted on realism. The subset was sealed, tight-lit in blood-red hues and shaken by hydraulics. Actors sweated in recycled air for hours. Many left the stage pale and trembling. Hackman's stern authority unnerved even crew members off camera. When released, critics called it a stylized fantasy. But Navy insiders said the film hit uncomfortably close to actual Cold War procedures where communication breakdowns could have ended humanity. Some officers reportedly forbade screenings aboard active vessels. Crimson Tide remains a haunting study of leadership under pressure. For submariners, it is not just fiction, It is a nightmare they've all imagined when the radio goes silent and the chain of command starts to break. Number 12. U-571, 2000. U-571 was meant to be a patriotic blockbuster. Instead, it ignited an international storm. The film followed an American crew on a daring mission to steal a German Enigma machine from a sinking U-boat during World War II. Explosions thundered, depth charges echoed, and audiences cheered. But beneath the spectacle lay a controversial lie. When the movie premiered, British veterans were furious. It was not Americans who captured the Enigma device, but sailors from the Royal Navy's HMS Bulldog in 1941. Politicians called the film historical theft. Even Prime Minister Tony Blair publicly condemned it. The filmmakers defended their decision as creative license. Yet the damage was done. The movie became a symbol of Hollywood's rewriting of war. Behind the scenes, production was plagued by problems. The crew built massive water tanks and full-scale sub-interiors. Mechanical failures forced long delays. Matthew McConaughey reportedly performed his own underwater scenes despite frigid conditions. Some extras fainted in the claustrophobic set. The director Jonathan Mostow wanted viewers to feel what it was like to drown inside metal. Despite the controversy, U-571 thrilled mainstream audiences. Its sound design won an Oscar, and its tension made even real submariners admit one thing. The atmosphere of flooding compartments and pressure hull groans was dead on. Yet veterans still call it the film that sank its own credibility. A reminder that bravery means nothing if the truth stays submerged. Number 11. The Enemy Below, 1957. Before computer graphics and surround sound, there was The Enemy Below, a simple duel between two captains locked in a deadly chess match beneath the sea. One commanded an American destroyer, the other a German U-boat. Both men weary, both professionals, both haunted. When it released during the height of Cold War suspicion, it shocked audiences. Instead of patriotic hatred, it showed mutual respect between enemies. Some critics called it dangerous propaganda. Yet military veterans loved it because it felt honest. The movie treated naval warfare as a battle of wits, not ideology. The production faced resistance from U.S. naval advisors who worried about portraying Germans as noble. The director Dick Powell ignored them. He shot much of the film on actual naval vessels. The result was authenticity you could feel in every tilt and vibration. The actors, including Robert Mitchum and Kurt Jurgens, developed a real friendship mirroring their characters' grudging admiration. For Submariners, this movie hit a nerve. It reminded them that beneath the surface, every man breathes the same recycled air of fear. The film's quiet humanity turned it into a classic taught in naval academies for decades. The Enemy Below remains the rare war film that dives past politics and surfaces in the realm of truth. Number 10. K-19, The Widowmaker, 2002. K-19. The Widowmaker was cursed from the start. Based on the true story of a Soviet nuclear submarine disaster in 1961, it exposed the horrors the Kremlin tried to erase. Harrison Ford played Captain Zatayev, forced to lead his doomed crew after a reactor malfunction turned their ship into a floating death trap. Russian officials despised it. They accused Hollywood of sensationalism and betrayal. Some surviving sailors called it exploitation. Yet the filmmakers insisted they wanted to honor the crew's sacrifice. During production, they faced the same claustrophobia as their subjects. Sets were built inside massive metal tubes with temperatures soaring past 100 degrees. Actors fainted, extras vomited, and director Catherine Bigelow refused to ease up until every scream felt real. When it premiered in Moscow, the tension was palpable. Families of the real K-19 sailors wept. Many had never been allowed to speak of what happened. The movie unearthed buried pain and gave faces to forgotten heroes. Critics in the West praised its technical precision, but faulted its grim pacing. For Submariners, K-19 became more than a film. It was a confession of what can happen when pride outweighs safety. Every rivet and leak told a truth sailors already knew. Beneath the waves, mistakes echo forever. Number 9. The Bedford Incident, 1965. The Waukee Bedford Incident was not an action film. It was a warning wrapped in silence. Released during the height of Cold War tension, it followed an American destroyer shadowing a Soviet submarine in icy waters. Richard Widmark played the ruthless captain obsessed with hunting his unseen enemy. Sidney Poitier portrayed a journalist trapped aboard as tension slowly boiled into madness. Audiences expecting a hero story left disturbed. The film ended not with victory but annihilation. A single human mistake triggered nuclear war. The Navy hated it. Officials claimed it misrepresented the professionalism of real commanders. But former officers admitted privately that the movie captured something real. The isolation, the stress, the temptation to overreact when radar blips become ghosts. Production was grueling. Director James B. Harris demanded authenticity. Actors rehearsed in sweltering mock control rooms. The ship's sonar sounds were mixed from actual naval recordings smuggled by technicians. The film's final sequence, a sudden nuclear detonation, was so shocking that some theaters cut it from early screenings. For submariners and surface sailors alike, the Bedford incident became a haunting study of how fear can sink reason. It was not about war. It was about what happens when human pride collides with mechanical power. The kind of story that echoes louder the deeper you go. Number 8. Run Silent, Run Deep, 1958. Run Silent, Run Deep was the blueprint for every submarine movie that followed. Starring Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster, it told the story of a veteran commander obsessed with revenge and a young officer caught between loyalty and logic. Beneath the Pacific, they hunted a Japanese destroyer in a duel that blurred duty and madness. Audiences loved its tension. Real submariners respected its accuracy. The U.S. Navy cooperated heavily, lending equipment and technical advisors. Yet there was quiet controversy. Many World War II veterans accused the film of sanitizing combat. The real missions were dirtier, bloodier, lonelier. Still, the film captured the claustrophobic discipline that defined submarine service. Behind the scenes, Gable clashed with Lancaster. Their on-screen rivalry became painfully real. The confined sets magnified every disagreement. Director Robert Wise insisted on authenticity. He shot many scenes inside real sub-compartments, causing actors to crawl through narrow hatches and sweat under blinding lights. The title itself became a naval mantra. To run silent meant to hide. To run deep meant to survive. For many submariners, the film preserved the unspoken code of underwater warfare: calm in chaos and silence in fear. Even decades later, it remains required viewing in naval training programs. Proof that cinema can honor the men who fought unseen. Number 7. The Wolf's Call, 2019. The Wolf's Call was France's answer to Hollywood's loud underwater thrillers. A sleek, modern story of sonar operators and nuclear submarines locked in geopolitical brinkmanship. But it wasn't the explosions that earned respect from submariners, it was the sound. The movie followed Chanterade, a gifted sonar specialist who could identify any vessel by ear. When he hears an impossible frequency, he suspects a hidden threat that could ignite World War III. What made it unique was the sound design. Every ping, every heartbeat of the ship felt scientifically precise. Naval veterans said they could almost smell the metal. Filmed with cooperation from the French Navy, it pushed realism to the edge. Actors trained with real sonar teams. Some sequences were shot aboard active vessels. The director, Antonin Baudry, a former diplomat, used his own knowledge of classified strategy to write the script. Military censors reviewed every line. Critics called it a European rival to The Hunt for Red October. Audiences called it nerve-shredding. What submariners admired most was its respect for silence. The film showed that the real enemy underwater is not another ship. It is sound itself. In a world where one echo can trigger apocalypse, The Wolf's Call proved that the loudest moments are those whispered beneath the waves. Number 6. Below, 2002. Below began as a ghost story disguised as a submarine thriller. Directed by David Twohy and co-written by Darren Aronofsky, it followed an American submarine in World War II that rescues survivors from a torpedoed ship only to find something else lurking in the depths. What started as a war mission turned into a supernatural descent into guilt and paranoia. The film was a box office failure, but among submariners it found a strange cult following. Beneath its haunted hull was a truth every sailor recognized: the claustrophobia, the whispering pipes, the creak of steel at crush depth. The ghosts were metaphors for trauma, every sound a reminder of lives lost at sea. During production, the cast endured suffocating conditions. The submarine sets were built on hydraulic rigs that constantly shifted and hissed. Actors often filmed in near darkness, breathing recycled air thick with heat. Some fainted. Others claimed they felt an actual presence on set. The director refused to let the crew speak above a whisper to preserve tension. Critics dismissed it as horror pretending to be history. But naval veterans admired its psychological depth. The movie dared to show what happens after war ends and guilt remains. Below may have failed commercially, yet in secret screenings among sailors it earned quiet respect. Because under pressure, even the bravest men fear what they cannot see. Number 5. The Silent Enemy, 1958. Before James Bond, there was Lionel Crabb. The Silent Enemy told the true story of the British naval diver who fought against Italian frogmen during World War II. It was one of the earliest films to reveal the secret underwater war fought not by submarines, but by the men who swam. Beneath them, armed with minds and courage. The film's tone was gritty, patriotic, and eerily prophetic. Just a year before its release, Commander Crabb disappeared mysteriously during a reconnaissance dive near a Soviet cruiser in Portsmouth. His body was later found headless. The government sealed the files for decades. Some whispered that The Silent Enemy was censored because it came too close to classified truth. Production took place in the Mediterranean using real naval divers and underwater demolition experts. Star Lawrence Harvey performed many of his own stunts without oxygen backup. The filmmakers nearly lost crew members during one sequence when explosive charges misfired. Despite the risk, the movie achieved stunning realism for its time. The Silent Enemy was both tribute and warning. It celebrated courage but hinted at how little the public ever knew about the secret battles fought beneath the surface. For submariners, it remains a reminder that the deadliest enemies are often unseen and the quietest heroes never surface again. Number 4. The Command, 2018. The Command, also known as Kursk, told the real story of the Russian submarine disaster of 2000 when the nuclear-powered Kursk sank in the Barents Sea. Based on true events, it recreated the explosion that trapped 118 sailors underwater while politics and bureaucracy delayed rescue. Directed by Thomas Vinterberg, it stripped away nationalism and focused on humanity. The trapped crew's final hours were filmed with suffocating realism. Water dripped from ceilings, lights flickered, actors whispered prayers into darkness. Real submariners called it one of the most accurate depictions of entrapment ever filmed. The Russian government denounced the movie, calling it Western propaganda. Many Russian theaters refused to screen it. Yet families of the real Kursk crew thanked the filmmakers for telling the story the Kremlin tried to bury. The emotional scenes of men writing farewell letters underwater broke audiences worldwide. Behind the camera, production was hellish. Sets were built on floating platforms, constantly sinking. Actors endured real flooding sequences that destroyed props. Vinterberg refused digital shortcuts. He wanted viewers to feel trapped, to gasp for breath with the crew. The Command is more than tragedy. It is testament. A story about loyalty, courage, and the silence of nations that look away. For those who serve beneath the waves, it is not entertainment. It is memory. Number 3. Greyhound, 2020. Greyhound stormed into the modern era with the force of a torpedo. Starring Tom Hanks, it told the story of an Allied destroyer commander protecting a convoy across the Atlantic during World War II. Though it was technically not a submarine film, its enemy was entirely beneath the surface. Packs of German U-boats stalked the convoy, turning open water into a graveyard. Hanks wrote the screenplay himself, adapting C.S. Forrester's novel, The Good Shepherd. His obsession with authenticity was legendary. Every radio call, every sonar ping was drawn from real naval transcripts. The dialogue was clipped and procedural, just as sailors speak in chaos. Submariners praised it for accuracy, calling it the first film in decades that got command tone right. Filming was brutal. The crew shot on storm-tossed decks with motion rigs mimicking 50-foot waves. Water cannons flooded the bridge set until actors shivered uncontrollably. Hanks refused body doubles, saying the exhaustion was part of the story. Even the digital submarines were modeled on wartime schematics down to each rivet. When released on streaming platforms during global lockdown, it hit harder than expected. Audiences trapped in their homes felt the suffocating anxiety of unseen danger. For sailors, Greyhound captured the relentless rhythm of command decisions made under impossible stress. It was not grand or sentimental. It was war as routine survival, the kind that leaves men hollow but unbroken. Number 2. The Abyss. 1989. The Abyss was not strictly about submarines, but every submariner who saw it nodded in grim recognition. James Cameron's underwater epic told of a deep-sea oil crew encountering an alien presence miles below the surface. Yet what truly terrified viewers was not the aliens. It was the crushing black pressure, the psychological breakdown, the sense of no return. Cameron built his set inside an abandoned nuclear reactor filled with 7 million gallons of water. Actors spent months submerged. The lead, Ed Harris, nearly drowned twice. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio suffered hypothermia. Crew members called it the abuse instead of the abyss. The chaos mirrored the film's themes of endurance under impossible conditions. When released, critics were divided. Some saw science fiction, others saw spiritual allegory, but naval veterans recognized truth in every bubble. The film's experimental diving suits, the isolation, the eerie beauty of light refracted through pressure. Submariners said it captured the unspoken fear of every dive, that beneath all the steel and training humans are fragile creatures in an alien world. Cameron later called it his most difficult film, yet its legacy remains unmatched. The Abyss made audiences feel what submariners already knew, that the sea does not forgive mistakes, and courage sometimes means descending into the dark simply because someone must. Number 1. Morning Departure. 1950. Morning Departure is the submarine film that veterans say hurts the most because it feels the most real. No torpedo duels, no hero fantasy, just a quiet British training mission that turns into every sailor's worst nightmare. A sudden underwater explosion cripples the sub, sending it to the ocean floor with only a handful of men surviving the initial blast. What follows isn't action, it's endurance, the kind only real submariners understand. When it released in 1950, audiences expected wartime bravado. Instead, they got suffocating realism that shook naval families across Britain. The Royal Navy cooperated heavily, and it shows in every frame: the cramped compartments, the methodical emergency procedures, the silence broken only by dripping pipes and strained breathing. The film's greatest power comes from its restraint. No dramatic music, no exaggerated heroism, just officers making impossible decisions while oxygen runs thin and darkness closes in. Actors performed inside airtight sets that grew unbearably hot under film lights. Some reportedly became dizzy from the claustrophobia. Submariners praised the accuracy so strongly that the movie was later used in naval training. Morning Departure is not a blockbuster. It is a confession, one that reminds viewers that beneath the waves, survival is never guaranteed. 4 submarine movies Submariners don't respect. Number 4. Phantom, 2013. Phantom tried to blend Cold War tension with supernatural mystery, but ended up sinking under its own weight. Starring Ed Harris and David Duchovny, it told the story of a Soviet submarine captain haunted by ghosts and espionage during a nuclear standoff. The idea had promise. The execution went off the rails. The real-life inspiration was the K-129 tragedy, a Soviet sub that sank under mysterious circumstances. But instead of realism, Phantom leaned on horror tropes and psychic visions. Submariners laughed at the inaccurate controls, the impossible maneuvers, and the total disregard for submarine acoustics. The film's sonar scenes looked like science fiction, not warfare. Even Harris later admitted he took the role for the challenge, not the script. The movie's rushed digital effects and confused tone turned what could have been a chilling story into a parody of submarine suspense. For sailors who live by precision, Phantom was unforgivable. It proved that when you fake fear, the ocean will expose you. Number 3. Hunter Killer, 2018. Hunter Killer promised gritty modern warfare and delivered Hollywood fantasy. Gerard Butler played a maverick American captain saving the Russian president from a coup while piloting a nuclear submarine under Arctic ice. The trailer looked fierce. The finished product looked like a video game. Real submariners mocked everything. The open hatches during combat, the endless shouting, the physics-defying turns that would have crushed any real hull. Even the dialogue felt alien to naval ears. In real subs, calm precision is survival. In Hunter Killer, chaos ruled every frame. The production did have U.S. Navy cooperation, but veterans whispered that the Navy's involvement was mostly for damage control. The Pentagon feared the film's portrayal of insubordination could embarrass the service. Critics called it patriotic pulp fiction. Audiences forgot it within weeks. For the men who know the ocean's silence, Hunter Killer was all noise and no depth. Number 2. Down Periscope, 1996. Comedy and submarines rarely mix. Down Periscope tried and failed spectacularly. Starring Kelsey Grammer as a misfit captain leading a ragtag crew, it aimed for laughs, but submariners found it insulting. The film portrayed sailors as buffoons and commanders as clowns. The set design was cartoonish, the tactics impossible, the tone juvenile. During early previews, active-duty sailors reportedly walked out. Critics dismissed it as sitcom humor trapped underwater. Even Grammer later admitted the film missed its mark. It became a running joke among Navy crews, an example of what happens when Hollywood dives too deep without a map. Yet some veterans concede one thing. It captured the camaraderie of sailors under pressure, even if it turned discipline into slapstick. Down Periscope may still entertain casual viewers, but for those who've lived in the dark steel corridors of real subs, it's like watching someone turn survival into a punchline. Number 1. Sub Down, 1997. Sub Down was made for television and looked like it. Starring Stephen Baldwin, it told of an environmental submarine trapped beneath the Arctic ice. It had every cliché. Flooding corridors, collapsing bulkheads, heroic self-sacrifice, but none of the realism. The budget barely covered the model effects. The dialogue sounded like it was written by someone who'd never seen a sonar screen. Submariners tore it apart. The sets were wrong. The emergency drills nonsense. Even the diving sequences ignored basic physics. It became infamous in naval circles as a training joke. Some officers even screened clips to show recruits what not to believe about submarine life. For the men who live the real thing, Sub Down is an unintentional comedy. Proof that you can build a steel coffin on screen but still never feel the pressure that defines the true submarine experience. These are the legends and the letdowns. Stories forged in pressure and shadows. Some soared, others sank. But all remind us that beneath the surface, truth has a sound only submariners can hear. Which of these deep-sea tales do you respect most? Let us know below. Like, subscribe, and stay ready for the next dive into cinema's darkest depths.